Captain Ginyu steers his sleek space pod through the atmosphere of the hidden planet, his eyes narrowed as he monitors his scouter. The air inside the cockpit is stale, smelling of ozone and Frieza Force technology, while the purple-skinned captain grows bewildered by the fluctuating readings. He watches in disbelief as significant power levels vanish like ghosts in the machinery. He questions how anyone could suppress their power so effectively, his purple brow furrowing with a mix of professional curiosity and rising irritation. On the ground, the rebellion members hold their breath, forcing their internal energy into a tight, undetectable knot. Tora and Fasha crouch in the jagged shadows, their fingers steady against the triggers of long-range energy rifles as they track the craft. With a synchronized pull, they unleash beams of concentrated energy that tear through the sky, shattering Ginyu's pod into flaming debris. Almost instantly, another perfectly placed shot detonates the scouter against Ginyu's head, severing his lifeline to the galaxy. As smoke clears, Captain Ginyu staggers onto the soil, his uniform scorched. He looks up to see a sea of faces that should have been extinguished years ago. He is paralyzed by the sight of dozens of Saiyans, grizzled veterans and wide-eyed children, standing in unified defiance. Though he sent a distress signal to his elite team before his communications were severed, the weight of the ambush forces him into a desperate defensive stance as the rebels swarm. High above, 4 streaks of fire pierce the clouds as the rest of the Ginyu Force arrives. However, Tora and Fasha are waiting with predatory patience. Beams of light punch through the glass of the incoming pods, striking the elite warriors directly and detonating their scouters in a shower of sparks. Disoriented and wounded, Rikum, Berder, Gise and Guldo are ejected from their burning vessels, tumbling toward the earth as their ships explode. The elite warriors hit the ground with a thud, their pride wounded more than their bodies. Enraged by the lack of respect for their dramatic tradition, they attempt their signature poses, only to be interrupted by a barrage of energy blasts. A chaotic melee erupts. Seeing a brief opening, Captain Ginyu focuses his energy and unleashes his body change technique, successfully transferring his essence into Bardock's powerful frame. Now inhabiting the leader's muscular body, Ginyu laughs with a gravelly, unfamiliar tone. The rebels freeze in horror, but Gine and Kakarot quickly step forward, their faces set in masks of determination. They reassure the others they will handle this impostor. Drawing on months of secret training, Ginyu in Bardock's body underestimates them, scoffing at the idea that a mother and her son could pose a threat, unaware of the latent potential flowing through their veins. Across the clearing, Nappa finds himself trapped in a frustrating dance with the diminutive Guldo, who freezes time to dodge the brute's massive fists. Every time Nappa lunges, the world stops, and Guldo mocks him with a high-pitched snicker. The frustration is palpable until a sudden, precise sniper shot from Fasha punctures Guldo's head at the exact moment time unfreezes. With the time manipulator dead, the momentum shifts. Broly and Paragus combine their strength to pummel Rikum into the dirt, while Gise and Berder are overwhelmed by the rebellion's sheer numbers. Ginyu realizes his team is falling and panics, searching for a fresh host. He prepares to launch his soul once more, but the soul of the original Bardock, trapped in Ginyu's purple battered body, anticipates the move. Bardock hurls himself into the path of the shimmering energy beam, orchestrating a mid-air collision to reclaim his rightful form. As the souls cross in a flash, Bardock, in Ginyu's body, uses his last strength to pierce the purple chest of his original body's temporary host, ensuring the swap results in a debilitating injury for Ginyu. The light fades, and the original Bardock stands once more in his own skin, gasping as blood seeps from the self-inflicted wound in his chest. Beside him, the broken body of Ginyu sprawls on the ground. Despite his impending death, Ginyu lets out a wet laugh, wheezing a final warning. Lord Frieza's shadow is already stretching toward them, and their victory is nothing but a temporary reprieve from annihilation. Bardock ignores the taunts and raises his hand, ending Ginyu's life with a decisive energy blast. A heavy silence falls as the adrenaline fades. The rebels look toward the stars with hope and dread, wondering if they are strong enough to face the Emperor. Bardock feels the sting of his wound, but knows there is no time for rest. The clock is ticking toward a confrontation with the full might of the Frieza Force. Standing before his people, Bardock delivers a blunt speech. He tells them the time for hiding is over. They have crossed a point of no return. They must choose between fleeing or standing their ground. The rebellion chooses to stay, deciding that moving now would only waste precious time they could use to hone their powers for the final battle. Deep in space, Lord Frieza sits in his hovering chair, his tail twitching with annoyance. He gazes out of the observation deck, noting the silence from his most reliable elite squad. It has been days since the Ginyu Force checked in. The lack of communication pricks at his legendary paranoia. He wonders if his subordinates have betrayed him, or if something far more dangerous has wiped them out. Frieza summons Zarbon and Dodoria, who scan charts to find the last coordinates of the missing team. They pinpoint an area near the desolate planet Serial. Unwilling to risk his primary assets on an unknown threat, Frieza decides to treat this as a reconnaissance mission for expendable pawns. He smiles cruelly, realizing he has the perfect tools to send into the Maw, tools he wouldn't mind losing anyway. In the barracks, Prince Vegeta, along with Kui and an elite guard, receive orders to investigate. In this timeline, Nappa and Raditz are already with the rebels. Vegeta's eyes narrow, sensing a suicide mission. He knows Frieza views him as a nuisance to be disposed of. Despite deep misgivings, Vegeta has no choice but to follow orders, knowing defiance means immediate execution. As he preps his pod, Vegeta wonders if someone powerful has finally risen to challenge Frieza's reign. He remains skeptical, but bitter. He knows that if anyone survived on that planet, they would harbor a murderous grudge against the Saiyan royal line specifically. He thinks of the stories of the legendary Super Saiyan, dismissing them as myths, even as he searches for a way to seize his own destiny. The three pods streak through the void. Back on the surface, the rebellion continues their intense preparation. Piccolo remains perched on a high ridge, his eyes closed as he focuses his telepathic senses on the surrounding space. He feels a sudden disturbance, 3 distinct energy signatures cutting through the atmosphere, and alerts Bardock that company has arrived. The ground shakes as the spherical ships crash land, kicking up a wall of dust. Prince Vegeta and his guards step out, hands hovering near their scouters. Before Vegeta can activate his device, Bardock leaps from the shadows, his presence commanding as he yells for the prince to stop. Vegeta freezes in sheer disbelief, recognizing the face of a man who should be a ghost. The tension is thick as the rest of the rebellion slowly emerges, revealing themselves to the stunned prince. Raditz and Nappa step forward from the rebel ranks, their eyes filled with a mixture of relief and newfound purpose. In the background, Paragus locks eyes with the prince, with a complex mixture of old loyalty and simmering resentment. The Saiyan race, once scattered, finds itself reunited, setting the stage for a rebellion that finally has the numbers to fight back. Bardock stands before the assembled trio of Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz, the dry wind of the alien world whipping his scarred face as he begins the arduous task of explaining their hidden resistance. He speaks with a weary but firm tone, detailing how this band of survivors managed to stay beneath the radar of the Frieza Force for so many years. Vegeta and his companions listen with a mixture of skepticism and genuine intrigue, their eyes darting around the camp as they process the impossible reality of a living Saiyan rebellion thriving in the shadows. To prove the merit of his group and settle the question of leadership, Bardock offers Vegeta a demonstration of their strength through a controlled spar. Vegeta radiates a cold, aristocratic confidence as he accepts the challenge, fully expecting to dominate a warrior he still views as a social inferior. However, the clearing becomes a stage for a shocking upset as Bardock moves with a speed and precision that belies his low-class origins, eventually putting Vegeta in his place and proving that he is currently the strongest warrior among them. Amidst the rebel ranks, the new arrivals spot unexpected faces, including the Namekian Piccolo and the veteran snipers Tora and Fasha. The atmosphere is heavy with the weight of old galactic grudges, though the shared betrayal by Frieza now acts as a grim adhesive for the group. Kakarot, now a teenager with wild, defiant hair, stands near the veterans as one of the few remaining youths, representing a new generation that must learn to coexist if they are to survive the coming storm. The fragile peace of the meeting is shattered when the massive figure of Broly suddenly lunges at Vegeta with murderous intent. Vegeta barely has time to brace himself as the air crackles with the raw, untamed power of the legendary warrior who seems driven by a primal, uncontrollable rage. Paragus stands nearby with a face twisted in a sneer of satisfaction, actively encouraging his son's assault and turning what was supposed to be a recruitment effort into a chaotic battlefield of internal strife. Bardock demands that Paragus call off the attack, but the older man refuses, his voice trembling with a long-held hatred for the royal bloodline that cast them out. Paragus recounts the betrayal of King Vegeta, projecting his desire for vengeance onto the innocent prince who stands before him. Bardock argues that the sins of the father should not be visited upon the son, especially since the king is already dead. But Paragus is blinded by a resentment that has fermented over years of isolation on a desolate world. Seeing the chaos, Bardock's patience wears thin, as he observes the uncontrollable nature of Broly's power. He realizes that while the youth is a powerhouse, his lack of discipline under the toxic influence of Paragus makes him more of a dangerous liability than a strategic asset. Paragus, sensing the shift in the group's dynamic, issues a final ultimatum. Bardock must choose between his loyalty to the established rebels or the three newcomers, threatening that only one faction will leave the planet alive. Without hesitation, Bardock makes his decision, prioritizing the strategic value and relative stability of Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz over the volatile and uncooperative Paragus. He orders Paragus and his son to leave the planet immediately, his voice echoing with a cold authority that brooks no argument. Bardock knows that killing Paragus might trigger an unstoppable, apocalyptic rage in Broly, so he allows them to live, provided they never return to threaten the rebellion again. Before the two exiles depart, Bardock approaches Broly, seeing the oppressive shock collar cinched tightly around the young man's neck. With a swift, forceful movement, Bardock breaks the restraining device, freeing Broly from his father's physical control even if the mental scars remain deep. He warns Paragus that his fate is now his own, and that if he eventually dies at the hands of the monster he created, it is a destiny he has earned through his own cruelty. Paragus and Broly vanish into the stars, leaving Vegeta to offer a rare word of thanks to Bardock for his pragmatic and difficult choice. Raditz, Bardock's own son, stands among the trio, providing a bridge of trust that Bardock knows will be vital for the intelligence they bring regarding Frieza's current operations. Vegeta warns that their time is running out. If they do not return to Frieza within a week or two, the tyrant will undoubtedly come searching for the source of their disappearance. The rebellion enters a period of frantic preparation, utilizing Namekian healing from Piccolo and salvage technology to push their physical limits. They train with a measured intensity, careful not to exhaust their stamina or suffer permanent injury before the inevitable arrival of the Frieza Force. Bardock watches his diverse team, Saiyans and the Namekian, as they hone their synergy, knowing that their only hope lies in a unified front against an overwhelming foe. As the weeks pass, a sudden shift in the atmosphere signals the end of their brief and precious respite. The sky fills with the ominous silhouettes of Frieza's capital ships, casting long, dark shadows over the landscape as the tyrant's army begins its aggressive descent. Vegeta's grim prediction has come true, and the Saiyans feel a rush of adrenaline as they prepare to meet the force that has oppressed their race for generations. The battle begins with a violent efficiency as the Saiyan rebels leap into the air, intercepting the descending soldiers with lethal, coordinated force. They tear through the ranks of the Frieza Force like a harvesting scythe, leaving only the primary command ship intact as the ground becomes littered with the remnants of the tyrant's army. Bardock and his team move with a coordinated ferocity, ensuring that no scout survives the initial skirmish to report their true numbers. Frieza floats out from the hatch of his ship in his hovering chair, his face contorted in a mask of pure aristocratic disgust as he surveys the carnage. He is shocked to find so many Saiyans still alive, and the realization that they have been plotting under his nose fuels a murderous rage that radiates from him in palpable waves. He screams a challenge that creates a physical shockwave, his eyes locking onto Vegeta and Bardock as he prepares to personally end the insurrection. As the moons of the planet align, the Saiyans seize their natural advantage to overwhelm the tyrant. Every Saiyan present, including Bardock, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz, undergoes a radical metamorphosis into a great ape. Bardock, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz now tower over the battlefield, their massive forms casting even longer shadows as they prepare to crush the tyrant. The giants close in, but the first strike of the actual engagement comes from the shadows. Tora and Fasha, perched in hidden vantage points, fire precise energy blasts that strike Frieza's vital points, stunning the tyrant and leaving him open for the physical onslaught of the massive apes. Frieza finds himself overwhelmed by the coordinated assault, his smaller frame battered by the immense strength of the great apes and the relentless fire from the Saiyan snipers. Battered and bleeding, Frieza realizes he cannot win in his current restricted state. Frieza undergoes a grotesque expansion of muscle and bone to enter his second form, and immediately follows it by elongating his skull and sprouting spikes to reach his third form. Now a monstrous Frieza, he begins to fight back with terrifying speed, specifically targeting the tails of the great apes in an attempt to force them back to their smaller states. The battle reaches a fever pitch as the great apes work together to protect one another's tails, while Tora and Fasha intercept Frieza's ranged attacks mid-air. Realizing the resistance is far more organized than he anticipated, Frieza sneers at the alliance before deciding to reveal the true extent of his power to end the struggle once and for all. Frieza sheds his jagged exterior and shrinks into a sleek white and purple entity as he enters his final form. Bardock feels a surge of determination even as the power of Frieza at 50% fills the air with a suffocating, terrifying pressure. However, in a split second of calculated cruelty, Frieza fires a precise death beam that severs the tail of the rebellion leader before he can react. Bardock undergoes a painful reversal of his transformation as he returns to his base form. Now standing vulnerable on the scorched earth, Bardock looks up at Frieza, refusing to back down as the final, desperate confrontation begins. Frieza hovers amidst the smoke of the battlefield, a cold chuckle vibrating in his throat as he observes the defiance in Bardock's eyes. The tyrant decides that killing the ringleader immediately would be far too merciful, preferring instead to dismantle the Saiyan spirit before the eyes of the remaining rebels. He views the rebellion as a foolish, petty annoyance, and relishes the opportunity to set a gruesome example. The air is thick with the scent of ozone and charred earth as Frieza focuses his malicious intent entirely on Bardock. Frieza launches a head-on assault, his movements a blur of pink and white that Bardock cannot hope to track without his great ape power. Each blow is calculated to prolong the agony, venting Frieza's mounting frustrations through the rhythmic sound of breaking bones. Bardock struggles to find an opening, but his strikes are ineffective, as Frieza mocks his low-class cleverness for having avoided the initial trap on planet Vegeta. Unbeknownst to the combatants, a small ship slips through the chaos. Piccolo emerges, his face pale with shock as he realizes the rebellion has spiraled into a massacre. Clutched in his hands are the 2 Dragon Balls of Namek, retrieved in secret, though he now fears bringing them near Frieza is a suicidal gamble. However, the sight of Bardock being systematically dismantled forces a hard decision. He must make a wish for immortality. Piccolo quickly brings the orbs together, calling forth the dragon into the darkened sky. The sudden appearance of the dragon's immense energy signature alerts Frieza. Just as the wish for immortality is granted to Bardock, a massive beam of energy erupts from Frieza's finger, tearing through the dragon and shattering the hope of any further wishes. The Dragon Balls tumble back to the earth, turning into cold, lifeless stone. Frieza seizes Piccolo by the throat, demanding to know the nature of the wish stolen from his grasp. Piccolo, though wounded, finds the courage to tell the tyrant that he will never be able to defeat Bardock now. In a fit of casual cruelty, Frieza executes the Namekian right in front of Bardock. Bardock then reappears behind the Emperor, his previous wounds completely sealed as if they had never existed. Frieza unleashes a barrage of death beams that skewer the Saiyan's chest and head. To Frieza's utter shock, the holes in Bardock's body close instantly. The immortal Bardock screams in agony from the sensation of death, yet he continues to charge forward, his power growing with every healed injury and every ounce of grief for his fallen friend. Frieza, losing his composure, flares his energy to its absolute maximum. He unleashes a torrential assault, but the immortal Bardock ignores the pain, driven by a singular need to end the tyrant's reign. As the battle rages, Tora and Fasha attempt to provide cover from a distance, their sniper fire momentarily distracting the enraged Emperor. Frieza snarls, his sanity beginning to fray, and he turns a lethal finger toward Fasha. Bardock tries to intercept the incoming death beam, but his immortal body is not fast enough. The light pierces through Fasha's chest. Tora watches in frozen horror as his comrade collapses, the battlefield claiming another life while Frieza laughs at the mounting tragedy. Frieza uses a blast of compressed air to knock the immortal Bardock away, turning his attention to the remaining members of the rebellion. Nappa rushes forward in a desperate attempt to shield the survivors, but he is swiftly cut down by a follow-up shot from the tyrant. The tides of the battle turn into a slaughter, as Frieza brutally eliminates the rest of Bardock's allies. The Emperor takes sadistic pleasure in the fact that while he cannot kill the immortal Bardock, he can force him to witness the extinction of everyone he holds dear. Frieza's gaze lands on the young Kakarot. Using telekinesis, the tyrant yanks the boy through the air toward his waiting hand. Great Ape Gine leaps forward to save her son, but Frieza fires a precise beam that severs her tail. Gine reverts to her base form. Now vulnerable, she continues her desperate struggle to reach Kakarot, even as Frieza mocks the cute display of a breaking family. Frieza tosses Kakarot into the sky, intending to blast him into atoms, but Raditz manages to catch his brother before the tyrant can fire. Raditz retreats with the unconscious Kakarot, leaving Gine to launch one final, hopeless attack. With a twisted grin, Frieza simply extends his hand, driving his arm through the chest of Gine. He tosses her broken body into the dirt like a discarded toy, looking back at the immortal Bardock with pure, unadulterated malice. Bardock stands paralyzed, his eyes darting between the cooling body of Gine and the monster who took her. The weight of his rebellion, the deaths of his comrades, his friends and his wife, crashes down upon him, fracturing his mind. The ground beneath his feet begins to crack and buckle as a strange, violent energy pulses through his veins. A primal, earth-shattering scream rips from his lungs as a brilliant yellow light erupts from his body. Bardock transforms into a Super Saiyan. In a flash of golden light, Super Saiyan Bardock vanishes and reappears directly above Frieza. Before Frieza can process the change, Bardock hammers a fist into his face, the resulting shockwave flattening the terrain and sending the Emperor reeling. Super Saiyan Bardock does not give him a moment to recover, meeting him in mid-air with a knee that shatters the Emperor's spine. Super Saiyan Bardock seizes Frieza by the tail, swinging him with monstrous strength before slamming him into the ground. The golden aura surrounding him flickers with the intensity of a dying star, reflecting the absolute malice he now feels. From the sidelines, Vegeta, Raditz, and a wounded Tora watch with wide-eyed disbelief. Vegeta realizes that the transformation he is witnessing is the legendary Super Saiyan, a myth he never truly believed could be achieved by a low-class warrior. Super Saiyan Bardock stands over the broken form of the Emperor, his eyes cold and devoid of mercy. He is aware of the incredible power surging through him, but his mind is occupied only by rage and sadness. He realizes that Frieza's own arrogance has brought this prophecy to life. Frieza, bloodied and unable to fight back, looks up with the agonizing realization of his own failure. Super Saiyan Bardock raises his hand, gathering a sphere of brilliant blue energy that crackles with the combined weight of his fury. With a final burst of speed, he drives an elbow into Frieza's midsection, lifting the tyrant off the ground, just as the energy attack is fully charged. He launches the blast at point-blank range, the magnitude of the explosion erasing every cell of Frieza from existence. As the last traces of the energy dissipate, the golden light fades and his hair returns to its natural ebony. Bardock reverts to his base form. He turns toward the survivors, Vegeta, Raditz, and Tora, his expression a hollow mask of grief and guilt despite the victory. Bardock admits he cannot feel pride in a victory that cost so many lives. Raditz tries to console him, while Vegeta suggests that more Dragon Balls exist on planet Namek, offering a slim hope that they could reverse the day's tragedies. Bardock looks toward the horizon, knowing that while the threat of Frieza is gone, the path forward as an immortal leader will be long and haunted by the shadows of those they left behind.